I find that wherever I go, there are some basic, fundamental issues that seem to bother all parents in all families. Families love their kids, they want to do what's right for their kids, and so they get into this overprotection and doing everything for them and try to provide everything for them, and it begins to have an impact in the child's life. And before long, there are some negative consequences by having that attitude. And we're going to talk about some of those tonight. And this is about parent traps, this series. To give you a little bit of a background about myself, I've been a social worker and a school teacher, and I have been certified as a school counselor. I've done marriage counseling, family therapy. It's been a great, wonderful experience for me. In the 50s, I was counseling in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s now. And I want you to know that the people that I have counseled are now grandparents. And what I have learned over the years, I have not learned necessarily in books. A lot of what I've learned is in books, but a lot of it's been through the blood and tears of raising a family and seeing the failures and the families of people I've loved and been associated with as they've struggled through horrible situations in their marriages and in their parenting. Because we can make some terrible mistakes as parents. And it seems the more we love and the harder we try, the more susceptible we are to making some of these mistakes, these horrendous mistakes that can be very tragic. And so I want to talk about some of those parent traps. Now, I gave up this personal counseling and gave up individual counseling. It is not hard for a counselor to have 30 or 40 families a week and make a very nice living because there's that much trouble out there. Do you believe that? And so I found, however, that it was not satisfying. And after a few years, I found that what I was doing is telling the same thing to everybody. In other words, you go to a counselor 1 hour a week, once a week, and you're in crisis. That is too little, too late. And the families that I was really able to help were those families that I could spend all day with. It was so bad, the family was upside down, and I took the day and spent the whole day with these families, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days in a row, to get these people's heads straightened and get the kids back in the home and stop the violence, etc., etc. But what I found was that people didn't benefit so much by my counseling as they did by my classes when I was teaching them what I knew. And I discovered in my counseling some of my people were becoming dependent on me. They were becoming dependent on me and not independent. They would come and I'd tell them what to do and they'd go home and do it. Then another set of problems would present itself and they would not know what to do because they did not understand the basic correct principles. And I'm going to get into this real deep a little later on and tell you why this is so very, very important for you and me to understand what we're doing, to understand the principles on which proper relationships are built and how proper parenting takes place. Proper parenting and wonderful, intimate, bonding relationships don't happen by accident. It's just like any other scientific principle. Whether you're talking about an airplane flying or gravity or anything else, there are sure principles that govern in our relationships. And when we know and practice correct principles, we are happier. And when we don't know it, we make the most stupid mistakes you have ever heard. A mother comes in with this pregnant girl, and the girl is devastated, she's humiliated, and the mother is angry. And the mother sits there in my office and says to her daughter, "Susan, how could you do this to our family? We have taught you better." What's happened to this little girl? This 16-year-old girl that's pregnant and terrified. You understand? These are some of the worst things a mother can do at that point. One father told me, if you get pregnant, do not bother to come home. Now, what kind of a message is that? That is the time when that child needs more love and more understanding than she probably ever has in her whole life or ever will again. She needs to know that she's still valuable, that she's still loved, that this isn't a tragedy. This is something that happens. And we know why it happens. Kids get off the beam and they can have this happen to any kid anytime. And you, as hard as you want to, you can come down and threaten those kids, and you can come down with hellfire and brimstone, and they're going to go out and live their lives. And a certain number of them are going to get a problem or two. That's not when we abandon them. That's not when we cut them off. That is not when we rage at them. That's when we have to open our arms and show them our love transcends their stupidity or their mistake. Now, as a counselor, I saw this over and over. The parents were terrified. They did not know what to do. And they came down and did the wrong things. And because they felt they could never be accepted again, these kids ran away or felt like failures for the rest of their lives. And I found this happening over and over and over. I could not believe the stupid things we parents are doing out of fear, trying to make our kids come out right. And so I gave up individual family counseling. I can do more talking to large groups of people who are interested in doing better parenting than I can on an individual basis, and it's so much more satisfying. And so my job is to teach, not to counsel. If you need counsel and you understand the things that I'm teaching, and you have the tapes, and you listen to them faithfully, when you do need counseling, it will be much less often and much less severe. And you will be able to talk the language of the counselor. And when he's talking about the family dysfunctional system, you'll know what he's talking about. When he says you're rescuing your kids or you're angry or you're trying to manipulate, you'll know what he's talking about. All right, now that's why I have dedicated the rest of my life, the next 10 or 15 years, to teaching these principles. I believe that we should teach people how to fish. We shouldn't make them dependent by giving them a fish. I know as sure as I stand here that you can learn anything that I have learned. You can learn everything that I have learned. And you won't have to go through the horrible times I had to go through to get this information, to go through the jails and the prisons and the drug rehab places. I hope that you can avoid these problems. And even though I was a counselor back then, and even though I had been trained in school, in psychology, in my own family, I still made some of these devastating mistakes. A person cannot progress if they're ignorant. You stay stuck right where you are. I can envision some guy standing by the Xerox machine, all right, the copier, and he punches a button, and the copy comes out. And he screams and hollers, "No, that is not the right copy." So he punches it again. And the same thing comes out. He is so upset, and he keeps punching it. Every day he punches it, and the same thing comes out. Why? I mean, hello, change the master. And you change the original, and now something new comes out. Well, we don't ever change the program here. That's why we go on in the same mistakes, with the same frustrations, with kids that don't clean their rooms, and that want to run away, and are fighting and quarreling, and will not work, and are lazy. And our relationships stink because we don't know what to do about it. But there are answers. And I challenge you to dig in and to make a big difference in your life. Change the master, and every single day will be different. All right, now let's look at this. Our belief in family. Familyhood's belief is this, that no matter what success you obtain in life, no matter how many degrees you have after your name, no matter how much money you have in the bank, no matter what the people in the church think of you, no matter how wonderful this world thinks you are, if you go home and your relationships are poor and frustrating and aggravating and agitating, you are an unhappy person. I've counseled people that have millions and millions of dollars, and they have lousy relationships with their kids and their wives. Their money doesn't save them. If you want true happiness, you have to clean out this inner cup. You have to find out what's not okay with you. And you have to be able to open up and to bond with other human beings who likewise are healthy. The reason people have their problems is because they don't feel worthy, for one thing. And they don't want to open up. And this is it. You'll find happiness in your home, or you won't find it. It's with our loved ones where we have the greatest opportunity to do the basic bonding and intimacy that we all crave so desperately. And when we don't have these feelings inside, and we don't have the bonding, and we're not connecting with our loved ones, and we're starving emotionally, that's when we go out into the world and try to compensate for our hurt, our emptiness, by being the best guy in the business, or being the star football player, or president of the class, or having $1 million in the bank, or having everybody think we're the best scoutmaster in the world. And those are all counterfeit. You can never satisfy that internal longing, that internal need, with these external validations. It doesn't exist. And so, I suggest to you, if you want happiness, you want true happiness, that you need to be able to bond and associate and affiliate and connect with your loved ones and feel safe and honored and loved. And that's what this is all about. Parenting, correct principles. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, I've talked about these devastating parent traps.